Balanced Life Supplements your natural way. Visit balancelifesups.com. Visit balancelifesups.com.
Take a moment to picture two very different items. In one hand, a cold, refreshing glass of bright orange soda, its vibrant color promising a sweet citrus taste. In the other hand, a piece of foam used to pad the inside of your sofa. Foam used in the casing of your computer. They seem entirely disconnected, worlds apart in function and purpose. One is meant for consumption, a treat to be enjoyed on a warm day. The other is an industrial material designed to slow the spread of fire in your home. Yet, a surprising chemical link connects them, raising important questions about what we allow in our food supply, and the long journey it sometimes takes for science to influence policy. The common thread is a substance known as brominated vegetable oil, or BVO. For decades, this ingredient was a quiet workhorse in the beverage industry. Its job was to keep the citrus oils in your favorite sodas from separating and floating to the top, ensuring every sip had a consistent flavor and a familiar cloudy appearance. Meanwhile, a chemically related family of compounds, brominated flame retardants, was being used to make everyday household items safer from fire. The element at the heart of both is bromine, a halogen effective at weighing down flavor oils and at inhibiting combustion. The story of BVO is how this industrial element found its way into our drinks. This dual-use reality ignited a decades-long controversy. It prompted consumer advocates and scientists to ask a very reasonable question. If an ingredient is chemically similar to something we use to fireproof our furniture, should we really be drinking it? This wasn't just abstract concern. Researchers began to find that bromine from BVO could build up in the human body over time, accumulating in our fat tissues and vital organs. This turned a simple additive into a complex public health issue, creating a stark dividing line between countries that acted swiftly and those that waited. The tale of BVO is a cautionary episode for our A Balanced Life series. It highlights a gap between scientific knowledge and what's permitted on grocery shelves. It forces us to look closer at ingredient lists and to understand the regulatory systems that are supposed to protect us. Over this essay, we'll explore why this single ingredient was banned in over 100 countries, including the entire European Union and Japan, decades ago, while it lingered on in the United States. It's a journey into food science, global regulation, and the power of consumer awareness. The global response to the potential risks of brominated vegetable oil has been anything but uniform. On one side, Japan, on the other, the European Union. Both banned BVO in the 1970s. They followed the precautionary principle. If there's credible suspicion of harm, act now. This prioritizes consumer safety over absolute scientific certainty. That certainty can take decades. On the opposite side, the United States. For over half a century, the FDA allowed BVO in beverages. It did so on an interim basis. That interim status was never finalized, nor was it formally rescinded. The result, regulatory limbo for generations. Other countries acted decisively, while the American system demanded a higher burden of proof. The absorption gap meant Americans drank an ingredient that Europeans did not, and that Indians did not. This essay will guide you through that history. We'll start with the countries that banned BVO and the precautionary principle. Then we'll focus on the US, the long path to the 2024 federal ban, and why you might still encounter products with BVO today. We'll examine state-level action, especially California's role, and how it pushed big beverage companies. Regional policy can spark national change. Most importantly, we'll deliver biological literacy and break down the science clearly. You'll learn why experts worried about BVO, how bromine can interfere with your thyroid's ability to function, why BVO accumulates in fat tissue, and the severe condition bromism documented in extreme cases. By the end, you'll understand the controversy and be equipped with practical knowledge to make informed choices for a balanced and healthy life. While dozens of countries were banning brominated vegetable oil, the United States took a different path. Here, the story was not one of swift precautionary action, but of decades-long regulatory delay. The US Food and Drug Administration first listed BVO as generally recognized as safe in 1958. However, this status was revoked just over a decade later in 1970 as safety concerns began to emerge. Instead of an outright ban, the FDA reclassified BVO and permitted its use on an interim basis. This temporary authorization was meant to be a placeholder, allowing beverage companies to keep using the ingredient while more safety studies were conducted. It was a decision that would define the American experience with BVO for the next 50 years. After decades of federal inaction, the catalyst for change came not from Washington, D.C., but from the state level. In October 2023, California became the first state in the nation to rebel against the FDA's long-standing position on BVO. Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law the California Food Safety Act, a landmark piece of legislation that banned the use of 4 chemical additives in food, including brominated vegetable oil. The law was not set to take effect until 2027, giving companies ample time to adapt. However, its passage sent a powerful shockwave through the food industry. They understood that a federal ban was mired in bureaucracy, but that a ban in California would have a similar practical effect. The prospect of having to produce 2 separate versions of their products, one for California and one for the other 49 states, is a logistical and financial nightmare. The impact of California's law was almost immediate. Long before the 2027 deadline, major national brands that still used BVO began to quietly accelerate their reformulation efforts. Following California's bold move and mounting public pressure, the US Food and Drug Administration could no longer justify its passive stance. 1 month after the California law was signed, November 2023, the FDA issued a proposal to revoke its regulation, allowing brominated vegetable oil. The agency cited recent studies, conducted with the National Institutes of Health, that provided new evidence BVO could be harmful. The studies confirmed what had long been suspected. BVO consumption raises bromine levels in the body and can have toxic effects on the thyroid. The agency opened a public comment period, and in July 2024, it finalized the rule. The federal ban on BVO was official. Companies were given until August 2, 2025, to fully comply with the new rule. Even with an official federal ban in place, the story of BVO in the United States does not end abruptly. Today, in mid-2024, and for the next year, you can still legally purchase products containing BVO. Beverage companies are permitted to sell off their remaining stock that was produced before the formulation changed. This means that for a time, you might see 2 identical-looking bottles of the same soda on a shelf, one with BVO on the ingredient list and one without. This long-tail effect is likely to be most noticeable with smaller, regional brands and discount grocery stores. Likewise, products with a long shelf life that were manufactured before the ban could remain in warehouses and on the back shelves of stores well into 2025, and perhaps even early 2026. For the American consumer, the saga serves as a potent reminder that, legal does not always mean optimal, and that the journey of a chemical from the factory floor to the grocery store shelf, and eventually off of it, can be a very long and complicated one. To understand why brominated vegetable oil was ever used in the first place, we need to look at a basic principle of chemistry. Oil and water do not mix. This creates a big challenge for making citrus sodas. The distinct flavors come from oils in the fruit peel: lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit. When those flavor oils hit sugary water, they separate and float to the surface, forming an oily ring at the top of the bottle. That's a problem. First, it looks unappealing to consumers. Second, it wrecks the flavor. One oily sip, then bland water. BVO is made by bonding bromine atoms to vegetable oil molecules. Adding bromine dramatically increases the oil's density. Blending heavy BVO with lighter flavor oils creates a new oil mixture. That mixture is calibrated to match the density of the soda's sugar water. When densities match, the oils stop floating. They stay suspended, producing the stable, cloudy appearance. While BVO was keeping soda cloudy in the beverage aisle, its chemical relatives were performing a very different job in other parts of the store. The same element is the key ingredient in a large class of industrial chemicals known as brominated flame retardants, or BFRs. These chemicals are highly effective at slowing down the ignition and spread of fire. This widespread industrial use is what makes the presence of a brominated compound in food so controversial. The very properties that make BFRs good at their job, their chemical stability and persistence, also make them an environmental and health concern. They can leach out of products over time, accumulating in household dust, and from there find their way into our bodies. Decades of research have shown that BFRs build up in human fat tissue, blood, and breast milk, and they have been linked to a variety of health problems, including developmental issues and hormone disruption. When you drink a soda with BVO, the brominated oil doesn't just pass through, it gets absorbed and stored in body fat. This process is called bioaccumulation. Think of it like adding a single drop of ink to a bucket of water every day. At first, you barely notice, but over weeks, months, years, the water darkens. First, bromine buildup can interfere with thyroid function. High bromine can compete with iodine, blocking absorption. That can disrupt hormone production and lead to hypothyroidism, fatigue, weight gain, cognitive issues. Second, in rare, documented cases, extreme BVO consumption caused a toxic state called bromism. Those cases involved drinking several liters of citrus soda every day. Documented symptoms included severe memory loss, tremors, fatigue, loss of muscle coordination, and painful acne-like skin lesions called bromoderma. Understanding the science behind BVO is empowering. It lets you take practical steps to protect your health. Until August 2025 has passed, check the ingredient list on citrus-flavored sodas or sports drinks, especially from smaller or regional brands you don't recognize. Look for brominated vegetable oil. Choose a different product if it's listed. Prioritize whole foods and simple beverages. Choosing water, plain or with a slice of real lemon or with a slice of real lime, eliminates exposure to additives like BVO and reduces your intake of sugar and artificial sweeteners. When you hear about a chemical controversy, ask critical questions. Is it fat-soluble? Does it have industrial uses? Is it banned in other countries? Your biological literacy is your best defense. The long, winding story of brominated vegetable oil is a powerful cautionary tale for the modern consumer. For 50 years, a chemical used to make soda look uniform was allowed in the American food supply, even though it was chemically related to industrial flame retardants and banned in over 100 other countries. This history underscores a critical lesson. Legal doesn't always mean harmless or necessary. The principle other countries used, and the US was slow to adopt, is the precautionary principle. Change is possible, but it usually requires multiple forces working together. Persistent pressure from consumer advocacy groups, new scientific studies confirming old fears, and a bold legislative move by a single state finally pushed the federal system into action. Let this be more than trivia about soda. Look beyond the marketing and bright colors to see what we're truly putting into our bodies. Next time you walk down the beverage aisle, remember the visual connection that started this conversation. For decades, the same family of chemicals used to fireproof your sofa was used to stabilize your soda. Disclaimer: this video is for educational purposes only. It is not medical or legal advice. Policies and timelines may change. Always check labels and consult a qualified professional.
Balance life, it made just for you. Balance your body, brighten your way. Feel the difference every day. Yeah. Balance life supplements your natural way. Visit balancelifesubs.com.